de guerra cibernética, pero hablar, ¿qué es espionaje? ¿No? Están tratando de sacar informaciones, o es una forma de un país más débil, más fraco, vencer un país mucho más poderoso. Ahí dice cuántos navíos, buques tiene China, no sé, 1000 que sea. Cuando tiene Estados Unidos, 10.000. ¿Cómo pueden vencer un enemigo mucho más fuerte? Si logran, por ejemplo, hacer un blackout en Nueva York, abrir una comporta de una represa, acabar con la comunicación de la policía, pueden destruir.
Okay, so the deep web is something where obviously you're looking at, just like you're saying, it's like the sea. There's some things there we'll never know about. It's so deep and so impossible to get to, and actually the deep web is the biggest part of the internet. So in Rsa's case, there are agents that have been working in the deep web for a long time now, for years and years, 8 years, which is a long time in internet terms. And they've established themselves as identities in the deep web. So they get a glimpse of what's going on, and they get like a real good portion of it from different countries, including Latin America, actually.
Like undercover?
Yeah. Yeah. So we have an intelligence arm, actually the biggest in the industry as well, because we started it so long ago. And we see, at Rsa, we see a lot of value in intelligence. You know, so we always look for ways to know more about the enemy and to unveil the enemy's face. So in terms of the deep web, a normal day person's not going to be able to do it. It's just like being an undercover cop and trying to find mafia bosses here in the city or in your city. You have to get dirty and you have to get in there and find out. So it's like the real world a lot. There's no way for us to know. And the deep web, by the way, does not only have financial crime in it. It has, you know, these dogfight crimes. They have child pornography. They have people trafficking. There's so many crimes in the deep web that it's like a jungle, and it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse because there's more people who are going online every day, and there's this whole generation, again, that's an online generation. Like our generation went online. We're the generation that got online. But for them, they were born into this. And so, you know, everybody today has a normal identity, but also has a digital identity. And we were born, we didn't have a digital identity, but babies now at 2 years old have a digital identity. And children at 11 years old arrive at digital maturity. Like they really have a persona online. So, you know, just like the real world is full of crime, the internet is a parallel world full of all the same crimes.
Because I'm not a politician. And I'm not a head of state. I have a hard enough time being head of a company. But I can at least offer my opinion. This is probably one of the most complex issues ever facing mankind. Because information technology and its latest incarnation, the emergence of big data, truly has the capability to make all of our lives so much more enriched and better, for all the reasons I described in my keynote. But it also has the potential to sow the seeds of our very destruction. What I didn't say in my keynote yesterday was that the current version of IP, there are 4.3 billion binary addresses. Think about that for a second. There's 2.4 billion internet users. I said there'd be about 1 billion devices connected to the internet. We're almost out of addresses. When we go to IPv version 6, we will have 340 trillion addresses. That's a lot of addresses. So what I said yesterday was our attack surface was going to expand. If you go back to even 5 or 6 years ago, our attack surface was this big. 5 or 6 years ago, or 7 years ago, we still had very few web applications. The iPhone was just starting to make its appearance. There was no iPad. We didn't have all of these mobility devices. We didn't have Facebook in a big, meaningful way. So all of these changes in the last 5 years have expanded our attack surface like this, right? And with IPv6, and as we connect more and more objects to the Internet of Things, the attack surface is going to go from like this to the bottom of Argentina to the other side of India. That's how big the attack surface is going to become. And if things are connected digitally, you can trigger those things to do things. All the automobiles take a left turn all at once. All of the devices inside to regulate our hearts or record data fail at once, right? All of these things could create destructive events. So as wonderful as it could be on the one hand, it could be a disaster on the other. Now back to the geopolitical answer. We actually have a model that already exists, and it's about nuclear non-proliferation, right? So far, at least, mankind has been able to avoid a nuclear war. We were able to avoid a nuclear war because everyone could see the insanity of launching one. We have to reach a level of understanding between and among governments that we can never let cyber weapons develop and proliferate. So again, I'm not a politician, but this is my view, and I think it's the only common sense view. We also have to make sure we also have to make sure that the Internet is trustworthy and confident. We can do that 2 ways. We can get governments to agree not only to not destroy one another and mankind, but to live by the rule of law. And that's the point I was trying to make in my keynote yesterday. We live in an interdependent world, a world of globalization based on world trade. The competitive nature of that will make us productive. Right now, there's all kinds of unevenness in terms of living standards and productivity. But globalization and technology, right, is going to level the playing field worldwide. And it'll be up to however individuals and countries work will be how their livelihoods and standard of livings will become dependent. If and only if we follow rule of law. So governments have to work on that as well. The additional complication that we have on the Internet that I don't believe we have in terms of the nuclear problem is the internet is much more difficult to trace than a physical weapon, much easier to launch attacks. So the additional complication is around non-state actors, hacktivists, and terrorists. They too can be stopped, but only if the nations of the world cooperate in terms of tracking them down. By the way, if the nations of the world would cooperate, the same would be true of the criminals. Now, we're not going to eliminate crime in the virtual world any more than we have in the physical world, but we can get it to a level of manageability. And then vendors like RSA that sell security products will be fighting a fair fight as opposed to an unfair fight that exists today. Does that make sense?